So, after listening to a few of my songs, or a few of my albums, you're probably wondering, hey, what genre do these fall into? They're not exactly rock, but on the other hand, I can't exactly say they're pop. For a long time, I wondered the exact same thing. I was like, are my songs vaporwave or what? Then I realized, holy cow, these are a new genre, Denver New Wave. Today, we're going to get into what exactly Denver New Wave is, its defining attributes, and why I think it's just so gosh darn cool, and I see nothing but good things for this genre in the coming years. Let's get right into this exciting breakdown of one of the most incredible genres in mainstream America these days that I totally didn't just make up. Seriously, it's a thing.
Alien nightmare, baby. Why don't you give me?
Regional genres are always interesting. I've always found them interesting anyway, like the Minneapolis sound, which defined many of the early Prince and Morris Day albums. Or, of course, you have the classic East Coast, West Coast rap battle with the notorious B.I.G. on one coast, and then you got Cypress Hill on the other coast. Well, Denver has never had much of a rap scene, nor do we have an East Coast, West Coast thing going on, considering Denver is in the middle of the country. So, for all intents and purposes, Denver New Wave takes the general characteristics of the New Wave of the 1980s and kind of puts a fresh spin on them. Now, there was already a New Wave revival in the 2000s, but Denver New Wave is really taking form in the 2020s. So if you can define the 2000s New Wave as New Wave, then what we've got going on right now here in Denver is New Wave, or just Denver New Wave, because mainly it's specific to the area of Denver. It might just be me, I don't know. I mean, I really doubt I'm the only one making music like this in the Denver area. That does seem statistically improbable. I hope I didn't just invent this genre out of nowhere. I don't really want to be the next Brian Eno or Daniel Lopatin. With that said, there are a few interesting characteristics of Denver New Wave which do make it distinct from other types of New Wave. For one, Denver New Wave utilizes instruments such as the acoustic guitar or harmonica to give it a nice Denver edge. Now, of course, this isn't to say that Denver New Wave is country per se, because Denver isn't country per se. Denver is more so an amalgamation of all cultures. It's pretty much the crossroads of America. So, as a result, it's a very, instrumentally wacky genre. Now, much like New Wave of the 1980s, Denver New Wave utilizes a lot of fun and exciting electronic gadgets, such as the Casio MT68 keyboard. This has about 20 different sounds, a lot of, drum loops and different features, but really any keyboard from the 1980s or 1990s will suffice. So long as it sounds sufficiently, you can use like a drum machine too, or, just so long as it sounds 80s-ish or 90s-ish. The main thing which separates Denver New Wave from the older New Wave is, of course, that it really has no connection to punk rock, and it doesn't even remotely sound like punk rock. It sounds about as far away from punk rock as you can get, and in that regard, it might be like No Wave, although Denver New Wave is a lot more tonally lighthearted than something like Swans. So it's not exactly No Wave either. It's like New Wave, but without the punk rock connection. Now, one defining thing about Denver New Wave, which I really like, is that it always features a nice, catchy central motif. If not a chord progression, then a really catchy central motif, and it'll sound really catchy. This, for instance, is the opening riff to Brutal Adhesive.
What is this?
So, you heard there, Brutal Adhesive is a real jam, and part of what makes it a jam is its lighthearted tone. The thing about Denver New Wave is it doesn't try to say anything much about society. It's very poppy, very like happy, very, it sticks in your head. It's an earworm. It's very catchy. Another element of Denver New Wave is, of course, the improvisational aspect. Unlike other electronic genres, say dubstep, Denver New Wave can be performed live and doesn't rely on a repeating, constant chord progression or rhythm or anything. It switches things up quite a bit throughout one single song.
Big sail!
On the other hand, though, it's very improvisational, and oftentimes the lyrics are improvisational. For instance, on all my songs, except I think Colfax in it, Firm Rules for Thee But Not For Me, all the lyrics are completely improv, so you kind of have to have a really good flow.
Been up in the C-SPAN news for privilege, you link papers around, but a yellow catches on a senator's glasses, drop to the floor, they'll be lost and found.
It isn't to say you're rapping the lyrics, you're more like singing the lyrics. With me, I have kind of a monotone delivery, so the distinction between the two is kind of cut, but in general, you want some lyrics that are really empty. They don't really mean anything. They're just a bunch of clutter and nonsense, but they sound fun. And that's the thing about Denver New Wave, is that it's a comment on how empty music can often be, even when it's trying to sound really deep. Like take Foster the People with Pumped Up Kicks. They try and want to make their, bubblegum pop hit sound really deep, so they make it about this really deep and dark and edgy subject matter, and people will go for it more. So by pretending that my songs have some kind of deeper meaning, what I'm doing, in essence, is, making people think, man, oh, Nick has so many deep things to say. But really, I'm just making easily digestible pop hits. There are two other genres that play a big factor in giving Denver New Wave its distinctive sound. One of them is sunshine pop, late 60s sunshine pop to be specific. It sounds very happy, it sounds very, cheerful, it sounds sunshine and rainbows all around. But given the harmonica and acoustic guitar mentioned earlier, it doesn't really have a Californian sound. Like something like the Beach Boys. It sounds more Denver-esque.
Ready for a computer revolution, cathode rays and videos.
The other genre that goes heavily into Denver New Wave is psychedelia. A lot of tracks of Denver New Wave are very psychedelic. And
when she gets on the dance floor, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Really delve into the possibilities of audio. A lot of them use vocal samples.
Oh, no, we can do better. We can do better.
Rhythm and melody interchangeably.
Rhythm and melody.
A lot of them, put sounds that are clearly organic through some type of digital filter, so you're listening to an electronic song, even though the instruments you're hearing are completely organic. Another interesting component of Denver New Wave is its corresponding aesthetic. Much like how synthwave corresponds to outrun, or vaporwave corresponds to vaporwave, Denver New Wave does have its own aesthetic. That being the picturesque shots of Denver, the skyline of Denver, the empty mountains far away, and short little buildings, or tall buildings, depending on where you're at. But the main thing about Denver New Wave is you've got to get some authentic 100% primo Denver scenery in there.
And poison you. You see the tourists in their suit-ups and bands on their way up to Evergreen.
Because Denver really looks like no other city. Like you can tell, like maybe not everyone can do this, but I can definitely tell a picture of Denver versus some other city. Just when I see a picture of Denver, I'm like, yeah, that's Denver. I already mentioned that Denver New Wave will more often than not feature improvised lyrics. However, vocal complexity is also a pretty large aspect of the genre. Essentially, you're trying to confuse anyone who wants to try and write up the lyrics on Genius.com by just layering vocals over vocals over vocals until it's all a big confusing soup of harmonic spaghetti. And nobody knows exactly where one word ends and another begins, and you can only make out brief phrases, and if you follow one track then it's one story, and if you follow another track it's a completely different story.
Oh yeah.
So layering is very important to Denver New Wave too. You need to have some kind of computer software or other editing software that can layer different tracks on top of one another. It's that kind of layering that makes Denver New Wave interesting. At the same time, though, you shouldn't make it so complicated that you couldn't perform it live if you were called on to do so.
Oh yeah, we got counterfeit IDs. Yeah, we got counterfeit IDs.
The main thing with Denver New Wave, which I think is important to keep in mind, is that it is not a lo-fi genre. It sounds very sharp. It has a hi-fi quality and a lo-fi tone, if that makes sense. It sounds like it would work if it were lo-fi, but it doesn't sound lo-fi. It sounds pretty hi-fi and well-defined.
Go away, and if you're at the party tonight, you better think about it fast. Yeah, you better think about it.
This is because Denver New Wave is not a genre like Vaporwave or Synthwave, which takes place in an alternate past that never existed. Rather, I think the best way to describe Denver New Wave would be as a genre which takes place in an alternate present which doesn't exist, one in which perhaps the internet never existed. An alternate 2022 is, I think, the best way you could describe Denver New Wave. It's not about the past, it's about an alternate present.
And that's the way it is.
That, I think, is the most important component to really understanding Denver New Wave. It does not sound like popular contemporary music. It sounds incredibly far away from all of that.
Out in the middle of the desert, you can see pretty tall. Do you want?
It sounds like if Depeche Mode was still putting out Speak and Spell songs, but they were American, and they were from Denver, but not quite. It's kind of difficult to describe. There are a lot of aspects to it, a lot of characteristics to it. But one thing is for sure, most, if not all, of my songs can be classified as Denver New Wave. That's the genre I'm going to use to describe them from now on. And also, Denver New Wave is really cool. And as far as I know, I didn't invent the genre. I mean, I didn't just make it up or anything. There's got to be someone else in the Denver area who plays songs like these, like somehow or some way, I don't know. It's just nice to know that Denver finally has a regional sound that it can call its own. Denver New Wave is a fascinating genre, and I look forward to exploring it more in the years ahead.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yes to this album. Hell yes. Everything up until this point has been so watertight. Oh baby. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yes. It's an album. Oh yeah. With numerous songs on it. Oh yeah. It's an album. It's an album. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Feeling a strong 9 to 10 baby. It's like it puts my brain on fire. My brain is on fire. I got fire brain.
That said, this has been an interesting little breakdown of some different components of Denver New Wave. These aren't really definitive. I mean, inventing a genre from scratch can be tough. No, wait, I didn't invent this genre. It existed a long time before me. I'm not a trendsetter. I'm just a mindless follower. I don't create entire trends or anything. I don't control the internet. I don't go to Bohemian Grove. You didn't hear that from me. Anyway, Denver New Wave, yeah, just a fascinating genre. And that's going to do it for this interesting little video here. In case you're wondering, yes, these are the exact same blue Christmas lights from my video Stellar Circumstances, which I made with Vaporwave Master 1. It's over on his channel. You can go check it out there. I think it would be classified as Vaporwave and not Denver New Wave, but
I think this is where the
Denver New Wave is nonetheless a fascinating genre. And if you know of any musicians in the Denver area who could be classified as Denver New Wave, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite songs of theirs are. I think it's a fascinating genre to discuss, and maybe if enough of you know of some prominent figures in the Denver New Wave scene, I'll be sure to list them in the next video. I'm out. Goodbye.